Hey there, David R. Becker here with Becker Art. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about absorbent ground. Gesso absorbent ground is what I make it. But absorbent ground is a primer. It's basically a primer to put on other materials so that you can do water-based mediums on them. So basically you're putting it on boards or anything that is not absorbent, basically, is what you can put this stuff on. And this is what it is. It's absorbent ground. Golden makes some, Winsor Newton makes some, Daniel Smith makes some, and it's all absorbent ground that you put on. This is just basically a panel, right? And I just put one of my homemade version, and this is the absorbent ground from Golden. And I'm gonna just show you how you can use this and what you can put this on, basically, and actually do like a painting that's not on watercolor paper, basically. So I could glue a piece of paper onto this board, or I can just use some of this absorbent ground, which is a primer, which is then used for making water base. You can use acrylic on it, you can use watercolors, anything that's water media, right? And so I made my own, and so what I had taken is I took some gesso from Holbein, and I just squeezed them in there, I put it in there. I take marble dust, and marble dust you can buy Jerry's Adorama. I bought this big bag from Blick's. Basically it's called Artist powdered marble dust, and you put that into the gesso, and then that'll give you the absorption that it needs when you go to put the gesso on there and you go to put your watercolor paint on there. So what I did is I mixed it in here, and again, you can mix it as thick as you want to where it becomes more of a paste and put that down, or make it really thin. Absorbent ground that Golden makes is pretty thin, and as you can tell, you can almost see through this one. I put it on a panel. This one would probably need about 2 coats on there so that you don't see anything, because it was absorbing into the panel a little bit, because it was a little bit more fluidy, fluidy, is that a word? Than this one I made myself. So I put enough pigment in there, enough marble dust, so that it was almost like a gel medium, and then it was kind of thick. And so if you look, it's kind of like pasty. See, it's sitting on the side. So it's like acrylic paint, and I didn't make it real runny, where the absorbent ground that Golden sells is very runny. And so you're not getting as much marble dust in it, probably. Because I think that's what they must use to make it absorbent. I can't think of anything else they put in there. And I think that in the ingredients, it says something like, it doesn't say marble dust, but one of the ingredients is marble dust, but it's not named that, and there's another name for marble dust, the scientific name, I think. And so but this is one I put on the board, and I also did this, I put it on plexiglass. So again, it's a ground, it's a primer that you can put on any surface that you can then paint a watercolor on, because now it's going to absorb. And let me just show you, we'll start with the plexiglass. So the plexiglass you can see through, right? I mean, you can see through it. And you know, what a great surface to work on. And you can put it on there. You can also glue a piece of paper onto it, but you can also just do this. This up here is the one I made with gesso and the marble dust, and this is the Golden. And you'll see they're both the same. They both act the same. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to wet it. I'm going to wet it first with some water, and then I'm just going to apply some paint. Let's just take some red here and just apply it on there and see how it's absorbing, and it's working like paper, basically. Now this one I made pretty thick, and so it has like lines from the brushwork that I put on there. You can roll it, and so it goes smooth. You can make it thinner, so I made it pretty thick, so I wanted to see the lines of my gesso that I put on there. The absorbent ground that I put on, I wanted to have lines. Where this one from Golden got pretty even, and so that's gonna be a little bit of dark in my, but see how it's just absorbing right into the paper. Now to show you the difference, so that's where it's primed. The primer, the gesso ground, the Golden absorbent ground is absorbing the watercolor now. And see how it makes an edge to it, because once it's wet, then you can apply it like you do normal paint, you know, where you can float your pigment. I always have you float your pigment. You can put other colors in there, and I'll use some gouache, and I'll just float it in there. Now if we took the same color and did it out here on the plexiglass, we can't paint on plexiglass, right? You know what would happen? It just doesn't stick, right? I mean, it just bubbles, and it kind of pushes up a little bit. You know, you can put this in there, but it's gonna just do its own thing and kind of go together. So there's nothing for it to absorb into. So it's gonna act like Yupo paper, basically. So you depending on how much paint you have on it, I mean, you could paint on there and it'd be really thick. So if you put like acrylic on top of plexiglass, that's okay. You can do that. It is transparent, so you have to work on something that's white, you know. But you can see there's no absorption, so it's not going to get that watercolor look like it would. See how you get the lines and it's just separating and stuff. Again, like if you were working in acrylic, and see how it just bubbles back in, and it'll always come up right away too. Where this will come up a little bit, you know, but it acts like watercolor paper basically. So same thing with this. So here's the board that I did. And so of course you can't do, you know, a watercolor on this board. Well, I guess you could, in effect, that you'd see the grain through there. And I'm not sure how it would stick and how it acts, you know, when you're working on a board. But if I just wet this surface and put it on there, I can paint like a regular watercolor. And just wet it and apply different colors into there like I normally do. You know, whatever you do in watercolor paper, you can do that on here, where you wouldn't do it on this plain board because it's just not, unless that's your new style. I'm not sure. Maybe people do that, but I don't paint on just regular boards. But I want it to feel like a piece of watercolor paper. And by putting the absorbent ground down, it then becomes like paper. And I don't think I let this dry enough, and so it's like pelling a little bit because I was in a hurry to get this painted. And actually I noticed that this doesn't cover as well as mine, because mine is thicker. I had more marble dust in there in my gesso than Golden had in its little absorbent ground here. But it acts just like a watercolor then. It acts like watercolor paper. See how this is still laying on top? This is still laying on top, and it's just going to feel like it's on plastic, right? It's really hard to work on that. That'll be like working on Yupo, where this is like working on paper. And then also this is like working on paper or on a panel, and you can make, depending on how you brush it on, the gesso or the absorbent ground, the way you gesso it on and put the absorbent ground on, you can also make it look like brush strokes, so that it almost kind of looks like an oil, even though it's just a watercolor. Because you see the lines in there? That's from the way I put down the gesso and the marble dust. I made it wavy, which I wanted that look, and so it gives me little lines. So if you don't want those waves, then put it on with like a roller or something that's very smooth, and you can just smooth it back and forth until you don't get any of those lines. It will still absorb just like paper, because it's absorbing, and that's what it's called, absorbent ground. It's absorbing the ground of the watercolor. And so it's kind of fun. And look at this. This is dripping all over here. This is not, like, you can't just do a painting on there. You know, it's just all over. It's not gripping anything. It's just plastic. This is a plexiglass, and it's just not going to grip on here. Here, it's gripping on something. And when I put the gesso on here, the gesso ground, it attaches here. What you can do is put, like, scrub it a little bit with, like not sandpaper, but, like, maybe a wire brush, just to get a little bit of texture. And also make sure that the plexiglass is cleaned of oils so that it sticks to the plexiglass. But you can do that on absorbent ground. You can put it on anything. I've seen people put them on shoes, you know, like on shoes, and then do like a little watercolor on like a pair of canvas shoes. You know, it's just kind of fun. So that's what absorbent ground is. And I made my own because this tends to be very expensive. And with the gesso, gesso is a little bit cheaper than absorbent ground. And then just buy your marble dust, and you get a big bag of it. Like I said, I bought this big bag. I forgot how much it was, but it wasn't that much as you think. And so I'd say under 20 bucks. And but this big bag of marble dust, 4 pounds of it. And what I used in here, this little bit I used, hardly anything. So it would last a long time. And again, your gesso is a little bit less expensive than this is absorbent ground. This thing, I think, was, I don't remember the cost, but I'm going to put all this in the descriptions of the video, so you can buy it on Amazon. You know, the golden you can buy on Amazon, this absorbent ground, if you want to just buy it outright, or you can make your own, and you can make it thicker and thinner the way you want, and see how it works, how nicely it works. It just absorbs right in there, and you can just do it like any watercolor. I could do a little watercolor on here, you know, and I can rub out just like you can. It's almost like using hot press if you make it really smooth, and it's like a rough paper if you make it rough. Like some people like to use the roller and just have the pebble look. So there's like pebbles in there. So it all depends. And also I've tried Daniel Smith's absorbent ground, and I didn't like it because it felt like there was too much marble dust in it. Like it was too thick, and it acted really weird. But this, I find that if you just use some Holbein gesso, and oh, another nice thing is that with Holbein, they have like, I don't know how many colors of gesso. They not only have white, they have black, and they have a slew of colors too. And they even have silver and gold. And so I'm going to try that. I ordered, this is gray, and so you can do your watercolor on a surface like we did with the black paper that I just recently done. I do work a lot on Stonehenge Aqua Black, but you can also use black gesso, put some marble dust in it, and then use that as an absorbent ground too. It's just it's a surface. It makes your surface possible for Watermedia. All right, so that's it for this week, my newsletter, and it's about making your own gesso ground, your absorbent ground. Absorbent ground meaning it's absorbing the ground of the paint on a surface. And I used this is just a plywood panel and also plexiglass. And like I said, you can put on anything. You can actually put on old paintings that you don't like anymore, and you're actually kind of ruin the paper because you can't go over and over and over again. So what you want to do is just put some of this absorbent ground on it and start again. You know, it can just, and you can work it like watercolor paper. And you'll even have the watercolor paper texture because it's right on top of there. So you can just cover up your old paintings that you don't like and just start them again. All right, so that is absorbent ground. And it's a way of making your own. And again, marble dust and gesso does the same thing. All right, so until Thursday, when we're going to be doing a painting this week together. And I do a painting every Thursday at 6:30 Central Standard Time. Go to my YouTube channel, which you're actually right on right now. So just subscribe to my channel here, and you can follow along with all my, I have about 400 videos on there. So come on by, subscribe, and we'll see you on Thursday. Bye-bye.